Yes. So, but Trump want to change the NAFTA
Yes.
regulation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
So Trump wants to renegotiate because he believes that actually NAFTA is bad for U.S. workers. It's
Yes.
good. It's so what he's basically he has two thoughts. Actually, NAFTA is very good for the people who hold stocks because it allows American industry to outsource part of their production to remain competitive. At the same time, it's bad for the blue collar workers. So he's balancing. At the one hand, by renegotiating NAFTA, the benefits of outsourcing are significantly reduced, if not made impossible. At the same time, he's reducing the tax burden of the rich people. So he's giving something back.
Okay. Okay.
I don't understand. Reduce tax
Tax.
from rich people?
Yes.
What do you mean balance?
He's giving all kinds of tax breaks to rich
What
people.
do you mean? What do you mean balancing?
Okay, so on the one hand, he's renegotiating NAFTA. That means that there is import duties, etc., which makes it, which is a cost to the American industry, especially the industries, the companies who have been outsourcing their manufacturing, for example, to Mexico. So if you are General Motors and you have been outsourcing a part of your production, let's say that you're outsourcing your car wheel manufacturing to Mexico. That means that when you bring them back into the United States, you actually need to pay import duties. That is a higher cost. Now,
Actually, no, they didn't. Yeah?
What?
Did?
Could they increase their prices? Probably not, because they need to compete with other brands like Japanese brands who bring their cars in the United States in a different way, so that they are not confronted with
Oh,
this
you
extra-
mean the American manufactured parts might be increased after
so the cost of parts,
a new agreement?
yes, that increases. So what we see now after the China trade war, when that started to materialize, a lot of American manufacturers were significantly hit.
But what the relationship you said balancing? I don't understand.
Okay, the balance is that basically because those extra costs of import cannot 100% be translated to higher price of goods, right? Because if you outsource your production to China and
The shipment fee.
And
Wait a minute, just don't talk
You
about
under-
China. Mexico, you're talking about Mexico.
Mexico or China, but actually there is
NAFTA.
NAFTA. Okay, so let's keep it to NAFTA.
Yeah,
It's
Canada
the same.
and Mexico is easy to understand that.
My confusing. Okay, what do you mean?
Your question.
What do you mean? Okay, reducing wealth people tax and balancing. What balancing?
Balancing. Okay, the balance is here. What Trump is doing by renegotiating NAFTA is increasing taxes, right?
For what?
He's increasing taxes
Yeah.
to bring the goods back into the United States. If you're producing your own car wheels, your wheel, right, from your cars.
What
So I'm a car manufacturer. I'm GM.
Uh-huh,
I make my car wheels in the United States. Now I can outsource it to Mexico, and then I can actually reduce the cost of car wheel manufacturing with 20%. That is more profit. That's good for my shareholders. So I'm going to outsource it.
So when GM came back to the products Mexico to the United States, Trump get more higher tax.
Right. So basically, they reduce the cost by 20% by bringing them back into the United States.
So you mean custom tax, right? By the way.
Yeah, customs. Yeah, import duties.
Mm-hmm.
So these import duties are put on the cost of wheels. Then basically, it doesn't make sense for GM to outsource it to Mexico anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So what Trump is trying to do, he's trying to bring the production of these car wheels back to the United States.
He want a car factory back to the US from Mexico or Canada.
Yes.
Okay.
So what that does, it will bring employment back to the United States. So it's good for the blue collar workers, but it's not good for the shareholders because higher costs cannot automatically be put on the cost of the car, because GM is not the only car
Sure.
manufacturing in
Sure.
the United States. There
Sure.
are any kind of cars being sold.
Yeah.
So it basically reduces the profit of GM.
Mm.
Then that means that the people who own GM
Mm.
will get less money. So what Trump is doing to compensate for that,
Mm.
reducing the tax burden of the rich people, the people who own GM, who own Apple, who own these companies. So
This is a balance.
this is the balance.
Your tax reduction is the stockholder of the GM.
Yes.
Not wealthy people in the US.
Well, so-
just the people who have the car manufacturer.
Yes. So everybody who's
Okay.
the rich people are the ones who own the industry.
Okay.
Right, so basically, putting import duties, they reduce the profits.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, they have to pay less taxes.
Mm.
So the rich people are being compensated while the blue collar workers get their jobs back. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Good aspect. But actually, nothing happened for
Nothing
blue
happened.
worker.
Yeah. No. I think
Right.
so.
Right, but that's
for
the
election.
basic. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm?
Just for his election. I mean, Trump
What do you
wanna
mean? What do you mean election for?
for the
Yeah.
next
Reduce
president.
tax for
Presidential.
rich people?
Yeah. The blue workers, so we can back the factory.
Not
Mexico
now,
to
not
the
anymore.
US.
He cannot increase blue worker job anymore. So this is a election. It doesn't affect for this kind of his original message. Nothing
But
happened.
it sounded good, right? It
Yeah,
Sounds
sounded-
good, but
sound is-
actually nothing happened.
That's right. So because his
okay.
support
Okay.
is
I tell you what he's going to do next year. Okay, he
Mhm.
decided to spend money for infrastructure like
Ah.
highway infrastructure construction. So blue worker will going to be hired 1 or 2 years. So he
Mm.
want to get more
I see.
vote from blue workers. Maybe he will do,
Okay.
but not this one.
So like Hoover or something, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Infrastructure.
The same
You,
one?
you know
Right.
the American highway, very everywhere, bumping,
Actually, suck.
right? Bumping.
Yeah.
So this need to reconstruct highway.
So
So everybody agrees, accept
there's
the
a lack
kind
of
of
maintenance on
Yeah,
highway. but-
only big cities like between Boston and New York City and DC. So some the how can I say the I forgot intercity highway
Yeah.
is a toll.
Interstate, yeah.
We have to pay.
Yeah.
But in the Midwest, so almost freeway. It's gonna be difficult to maintain.
But I was in the States.
subway from there.
I was in the States last year, and I drove around California, Arizona, that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, toll road.
I thought it was not bad. It was pretty good actually.
no. We're going to Los Angeles, terrible,
Los Angeles was not so
terrible,
bad.
terrible. You cannot, big hole, many places.
I actually,
Do you know the Los Angeles highway is already constructed more 50 years ago? Okay, no maintenance. They still
But
make
that was
investment.
not my experience actually.
No, many big holes.
I did.
San Francisco the same. California. has
Actually,
it.
I don't know the West Coast.
I don't know.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. Sure. It was not my experience. I was in San Francisco, Los Angeles.
You talking about suburbs, right? Just downtown.
No. Also everywhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Actually, in the New York State, the intercity is a very good, but like how can I say like a normal way.
The local
Local way
highways,
is
yeah.
not good actually.
Maybe, but I thought actually the roads were not bad. Maybe California is doing well and they're investing more into infrastructure, but not so bad.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So basically, there are a lot of lies in here. You can tell many stories from this data and try to make your point. So just start the same graph here. Forget about everything that happens here, and you can say, "Oh, you see, actually, labor participation is decreasing because of automation." But
Okay, just I gave you my question. What do you expect next 5 to 10 years?
what I expect, I think, what I expect is this.
Why? Why?
So you are Jewish.
Let's look at the video first. Yeah. So then let's make it easier because basically he's trying to answer that question.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Employed in the labor market is higher now
I will give
in
you
2016 than it was 125 years ago in 1890, and it's risen in
reasons
just
why.
about every decade in the intervening 125 years. This poses a paradox. Our machines increasingly do our work for us. Why doesn't this make our labor redundant and our skills obsolete? Why are there still so many jobs? I'm going to try to answer that question tonight, and along the way, I'm going to tell you what this means for the future of work and the challenges that automation does and does not pose for our society. Why are there so many jobs? There are actually two fundamental economic principles at stake. One has to do with human genius and creativity. The other has to do with human insatiability, or greed if you like. I'm going to call the first of these the O-ring principle, and it determines the type of work that we do. The second principle is the never get enough principle, and it determines how many jobs there actually are. Let's start with the O-ring. ATMs, automated teller machines, had two countervailing effects on bank teller employment. As you'd expect, they replaced a lot of teller tasks. The number of tellers per branch fell by about a third. But banks quickly discovered it also was cheaper to open new branches, and the number of bank branches increased by about 40% in the same time period. The net result was more branches and more tellers. But those tellers were doing somewhat different work. As their routine cash handling tasks receded, they became less like checkout clerks and more like salespeople, forging relationships with customers, solving problems, and introducing them to new products like credit cards, loans, and investments. More tellers doing a more cognitively demanding job. There's a general principle here. Most of the work that we do requires a multiplicity of skills. And brains and brawn, technical expertise and intuitive mastery, perspiration and inspiration, in the words of Thomas Edison. In general, automating some subset of those tasks doesn't make the other ones unnecessary. In fact, it makes them more important. It increases their economic value. Let me give you a stark example. In 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded and crashed back down to Earth less than 2 minutes after takeoff. The cause of that crash, it turned out, was an inexpensive rubber O-ring in the booster rocket that had frozen on the launch pad the night before and failed catastrophically moments after takeoff. In this multi-billion-dollar enterprise, that simple rubber O-ring made the difference between mission success and the calamitous death of 7 astronauts. An ingenious metaphor for this tragic setting is the O-ring production function named by Harvard economist Michael Kramer after the Challenger disaster. The O-ring production function conceives of work as a series of interlocking steps, links in a chain. Every one of those links must hold for the mission to succeed. If any of them fails, the mission or the product or the service comes crashing down. This precarious situation has a surprisingly positive implication, which is that improvements in the reliability of any one link in the chain increases the value of improving any of the other links. Concretely, if most of the links are brittle and prone to breakage, the fact that your link is not that reliable, it's not that important. Probably something else will break anyway. But as all the other links become robust and reliable, the importance of your link becomes more essential. In the limit, everything depends upon it. The reason the O-ring was critical to Space Shuttle Challenger is because everything else worked perfectly. If the Challenger were kind of the space era equivalent of Microsoft Windows 2000, the reliability of the O-ring wouldn't have mattered because the machine would have crashed. Here's the broader point. In much of the work that we do, we are the O-rings. Yes, ATMs could do certain cash handling tasks faster and better than tellers, but that didn't make tellers superfluous. It increased the importance of their problem-solving skills and their relationships with customers. The same principle applies if we're building a building, if we're diagnosing and caring for a patient, or if we are teaching a class to a room full of high schoolers. As our tools improve, technology magnifies our leverage and increases the importance of our expertise and our judgment and our creativity.
わかる？
ちょっと途中で難しくなってきましたそのオーリングって何っていう
O-ring is actually a little rubber ring, and the O-ring is usually used to actually stop oil from leaking.
O-ring.
An O-ring is just a little rubber ring that you put, for example, if you have
I know that I'm car geek, so they have many O-rings in the between the injection
Yes.
to the gasket, like a gasket,
yes,
right?
exactly.
Okay.
A very inexpensive part of the entire machine. But once the value of the machine goes up, like in this case, the rocket, the space rocket is a multi-billion dollar operation, and everything needs to work in order to leverage that investment. So basically, the value of that rocket is billions of dollars worth. But the entire operation is as strong as its weakest link, and the weakest link is the O-ring. It turned out that it was just an O-ring that cost about $1 that completely destroyed the rocket.
Just Challenger or something like that.
Yes.
Oh, so that's what you were saying.
That's what he's talking about. He's talking about the Challenger. So the Challenger exploded in midair because of the simple O-ring.
I remember that.
So what automation does, it actually increases the value, the potential of revenue. So when we are starting to use AI, then it will help us to, we have a huge potential. But the people who are behind the machine, the people who are designing the questions, etc., become much more important, much more vital. That's why when we are we're automating stuff, we are actually creating the potential for revenue. But that makes us the weakest link. So what the next step is that we need to educate ourselves. We need to broaden our perspective. We need to surround this entire process to make sure that we are actually delivering that value. So the quality of this O-ring, everything needs to catch up with that technology. So what happened in the over the past 100 years is that automation started to develop. So basically, we first started to automate car manufacturing, but then when cars were manufactured, actually, in order to make that work, we needed to create a big network of salespeople and to actually sell those cars, and we needed to educate people to drive these cars, and we needed to create the infrastructure. And so we actually managed to make the horse carriage obsolete, and a lot of people who drove drove horses lost their jobs. But on the other hand, we started to make infrastructure, we started to educate, we started to hire salespeople, we started to get people who would train people to drive cars. So actually, in order to make this car industry happen, a lot of other people were starting to be employed.